Hello everyone, I'm back after a long time of not uploading anything for like half a year or something. I've really been busy with school, but I've just recently graduated, so I'm on summer vacation and I have a lot of time to do a lot of cool things that I haven't really done for quite a while. So hopefully I'll start uploading quite often, but what I'm going to do today is a little different than what I normally upload. Obviously, I typically upload battles, Pokemon battles. Today what I'm going to do, however, is in light of Black and White 2's release in Japan, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to release a series of me just kind of talking about the changes in the game and kind of speculating on how a lot of things will implement and change and develop the new metagame, because the metagame is going to be very, very different looking at all these additions to Black and White 2. So I'm going to start today by just talking about the new Pokemon forms, and I'll upload videos hopefully every day talking about different new aspects to the competitive scene from Black and White 2. So today I'm going to be talking about new Pokemon form changes, and I guess we'll just get started right away. So the first form change that I'm going to talk about is Tornadus. And as you all may know by now, Tornadus, Landorus, and Thundurus, the three legendary genies, whatever you want to call them, the Djinn, the trio of, I forgot what they're called, but the three of them have received new form changes. And I think each one is different than its older form, but whether it's better or worse, I think I'll develop my opinion as I kind of talk about it. So really quickly, its looks, Tornadus-T, because T stands for Therian form. Their new forms are called the Therian forms, which I believe kind of means beast forms, which is really cool because before they were more like spirits, kind of guardians, and now they're beasts. You know, these are their animal incarnations. So Tornadus-T looks like a bird. Simply put, it's literally an actual bird, which is really cool. You know, I like how all three of these new forms look very different, especially because their original forms looked exactly the same with just different colors. So that's an improvement for sure. So I like its looks. You know, it's just a huge, giant bird. So what else is there more to say about that? Looking at its stats, however, it has received a significant change to its stats. Its defenses are a little higher. It has the same exact HP as before, which is 79 base HP, and it now has 80 base defense as opposed to 70 before, 90 special defense as opposed to 80 before, so it only got plus 10 boosts to those defenses, which isn't really anything humongous, but looking at the rest of its stats, it might be. So what it lost in terms of stats, it now has less attack and less special attack, which by 15 points each, which is pretty significant, though at the same time it was very, very strong before at 115 attack and 125 special attack. Now it's 100 attack and 110 special attack, which is still pretty significant. That's almost on par with Lucario's offenses. So, you know, that kind of puts it into perspective. So, you know, that right there is really not too bad of a loss, especially when you look at what else it gained other than the plus 10 defenses. I mean, obviously the defenses, it didn't need to gain that defense. It could have kept its physical stats and it would have been great, but you know, the defensive boost is not anything huge, like I said, but it could be. So its speed is what kind of makes it, I think. Like I said, its offensive drops don't really break it. They don't make it any better, obviously, but they're not huge losses. The addition in defenses, like I said, aren't huge either, but I think the speed is huge. It's gained 10 points from base 111 to hit base 121 speed now in its Therian form, which is huge. That allows it to outspeed almost everything in OU, and I think I can say, I know this is kind of going off topic, but I think it's safe to say I think Jolteon might rise, Jolteon and like Mamoswine, things like that might rise in usage because there are going to be great checks to this thing, because I think this thing is going to be huge in the metagame. It might be one of the best OU Pokemon to be released in Black and White 2. I mean, I'm just speculating right now, but it looks really good on paper. So the speed is huge. Base 121 speed outspeeds Alakazam, it outspeeds all the dragons, it outspeeds Latios and Latias, it outspeeds almost everything, like I said. So stat-wise, it's good. It's got a huge improvement. Move pool, or sorry, let's go to ability now. Its new ability is Regenerator, which is a great ability on almost any Pokemon, I think. On Tornadus-T, it's excellent, especially with the potential to scout. You know, it still gets U-turn, it still is going to be able to run Life Orb really effectively, and it's weak to Stealth Rock. All three of these factors make Regenerator just a huge blessing. It can come in on Stealth Rocks, you know, take a quarter of its health, you know, scare something out, you know, damage something with an attack, or you know, set up anything, and it can switch out the very next turn and come back with full HP. Obviously, if Stealth Rocks are still up, it'll still take the damage, but it's essentially coming in at full HP each time if it doesn't take any damage, which is huge. Again, if Stealth Rocks are not up and it has Life Orb, it can essentially hit 3 times, switch out, and come back at full health. So that's just great. I mean, Regenerator is a good ability on essentially any Pokemon, offensive or defensive. And since Tornadus-T kind of sits in between, it kind of perches on the fence of offensive and defensive, I think that Regenerator is going to be amazing for it, especially again with U-turn, because, you know, Tornadus-T is going to be a great optimizer of U-turn, and it's also going to be great to utilize, you know, or to kind of go against being weak to Stealth Rock. So I think that Regenerator helps. In terms of move pool, it really hasn't gained much at all. I mean, from the move tutors, it's gained Heat Wave, which is going to be really good in terms of coverage, but it still has the same moves. It still has Hurricane, which is probably going to be its most prominent move. I think every time you see this thing, it's going to have Hurricane. So other than that, it's not. That's pretty much all there is to say about it. I think it's going to be great, and it's going to be fast. It's going to be able to take hits, able to switch out, come back in, and it's going to threaten a lot of things. So expect to see this on a lot of rain teams, or just a lot of teams in general. And in terms of move pool, again, it did lose Prankster as an ability, but again, between Tornadus and Thundurus, I think Thundurus was the much better abuser of Prankster. Tornadus really just had, what, Tailwind, Substitute, Bulk Up, maybe Taunt. I mean, those are decent moves, but especially looking at its stats now, it's not going to really miss those too much with Prankster. It can still use them, it just won't have Prankster. But I think Regenerator is a great ability for the stats and move pool that it has now. So Tornadus-T, great addition. I think it's way better than it was before. And now let's move on to Thundurus-T, Thundurus-Therian. So what I like about this shift is that Tornadus and Thundurus in Black and White were identical, essentially. In terms of stats, they were identical, ability, and even in looks, they were identical. Of course, Thundurus shone more because its typing was tons better, but this time around, it's kind of different. And like I said, Tornadus-T is going to be a huge thing to watch out for in Black and White 2 OU. Thundurus, on the other hand, is kind of interesting. It's different. Let's go with the way it looks. I can't tell what an animal this is going to be. It looks like it could be some sort of mammal, maybe a bear or something, I don't know. A centaur? I thought a centaur, but a centaur is not a real animal, but I don't think it has to be. But anyways, its looks are kind of weird, but I don't mind it because when you look at its stats, they really make up for it. So, where Tornadus gained defense, Thundurus kept them in its new form change. 70 and 80 with 79 HP, which is actually decent. That's not bad at all for an offensive threat, because this is going to be an offensive threat. What it lost is 10 attack, so it now hits 105 attack, which is still good. And, I mean, that's still able to abuse things like Hammer Arm. I think that's really it. And it lost 10 speed, which gets it to 101, which is not bad. It's not really that good, but especially compared to 111, which is one of the huge reasons why I went Uber before. 101 is, like I said, not too bad, but it's not that great. It's still able to get the edge on base 100s. So, I mean, Landorus was base 101, so that kind of puts it into perspective. But at the same time, the loss in speed is kind of noticeable. Though, what it also gained, and this is huge, is plus 20 special attack. So if you thought that Thundurus wasn't threatening enough before with 125 special attack, Stab Thunder, Hidden Power Ice, and Focus Blast for coverage, it's loads better now. It's base 145, which puts it into perspective as, looking at it overall, Thundurus-T is now just a better version of Chandelure. It's like it's twice as good as Chandelure. And if you think Chandelure is good now, Thundurus-T is supremely better. It has a better typing with a lot of resistances and a couple immunities. Actually, I think just one immunity, but anyways, it has a lot of resistances, and where Chandelure has little. Chandelure has a lot of common weaknesses. Thundurus doesn't have too many. Still weak to Stealth Rock, but and its coverage is way better. In just 2 moves, Electric and Ice, it can hit almost everything for a lot of damage, especially coming off that 145 special attack. So Scarf Thundurus-T is going to be huge. It's going to be deadly. Not to mention, it still gets Nasty Plot. You could send this thing in and scare out a lot of things and get a free turn of setup with Nasty Plot, and you're going to just go to town on everything. If Nasty Plot Thundurus wasn't threatening before, it's going to be way more threatening now. Although, at the same time, it does lose its speed, which is another thing that helped Nasty Plot Thundurus before. And it also loses Prankster, which is yet another thing that aided it. But Volt Absorb is still good because there's really a lot of electric types running rampant in OU, and that's not going to change with the coming months, especially with Tornadus-T coming out and the predominance of water. Tornadus-T and Keldeo coming out, but we'll get to Keldeo in a bit. So electric types are still going to be very prominent. This electric type is going to be extremely prominent in OU. So Volt Absorb is a very, very relevant ability for a very, very relevant Pokemon. In terms of move pool, I really don't think it got anything new. I'm not looking at it right now, but it didn't get anything extremely worth note of. So it's still just as good as it was before. No, I think it's better, but in terms of where its tiering will be, I can see it being in OU and being good because it's still not perfect, but I think this thing's going to go not straight, but I think it's going to go to Uber. That's my prediction right now. Like I said, it's pretty much a better Chandelure. Chandelure is really good even in OU. Even though it's a UU right now, Chandelure is good in OU. And like I said, this is just a better Chandelure. And I don't think that it's just going to stay in OU forever. I'm pretty sure it'll go Uber with that special attack stat. And even with that speed, I mean, like I said, Landorus, who's kind of a different Pokemon, but he still was able to abuse that base 101 speed with the Choice Scarf last gen, or at least in Black and White. Thundurus-T is going to be able to do that and more with Volt Switch, Thunder, HP Ice, Focus Blast, and like I said, it even gets, I think, U-Turn and Hammer Arm for coverage. So it won't be, and 105 attack is still good, so this thing is not going to be bad. I want to say it's going to be better than Tornadus-T, but like I said, since it's probably going to go Uber, I don't think that's too relevant just yet, but yeah, that's Thundurus-T for you. And next we have Landorus-T, the last of the Therian forms. And Landorus-T is interesting as well. And something else I like about these 3 Therian forms is that each one is very, very different than the other now. Whereas before, it was they were all really similar. Now they're very different, and I like how they're each kind of their own threat now. I mean, I guess they were their own threat before, but now they're really they have their own roles. They're just completely different. So Landorus-T, by looks of it, it's probably my favorite of the 3 in terms of looks. It looks like a kind of cheetah, jaguar, panther thing, maybe a lion. I don't know. It's a quadrupedal mammal. So I mean, that's always cool, especially because before it was a genie. For it to go from that to this is, I think, really cool. still ground and flying, which is kind of interesting, but I like the kind of clouds around its claws. It can I can see how that can maybe make it fly, but either way, this is my favorite of the looks. Its stats are, in terms of what it got and lost, pretty similar to Thundurus-T. It gained plus 20 in an offensive stat, and lost 10 in its other offensive stat, and 10 in its speed. So what that means is it's hitting 145 attack, just like Thundurus-T hits 145 special attack. It's hitting 105 special attack now. Before it was 115, and now it's at 91 speed, which is a lot slower. It's kind of a lot slower. It's still able to kind of outspeed things like Lucario and pretty much beat him out. Even though Lucario has priority, there's something that the Landorus-T gets that really makes it just really, really good. But we'll get to that right now. So anyways, 145 attack is huge. That's essentially on par with Darmanitan, Haxorus, etc. And because Landorus-T already had the coverage it needed in terms of Stone Edge, Hammer Arm, and Earthquake, and it even gets superpower from the move tutors, it's not going to have a problem hitting things really, really hard. And it still has 105 special attack, which means it can still run Hidden Power Ice for Gliscor and just kind of single-handedly dominate the metagame. Not single-handedly, but it's going to be a huge threat. Be on the lookout for this. This is kind of a bulkier, more powerful Terrakion. Sorry, I said that weird. More or less. I mean, I love Terrakion, but that's another thing. So, yeah, Landorus-T is going to be huge. It gets Intimidate as its ability, which is great because, like I said, it can come in on any physical attacker, essentially, except maybe Mamoswine. Even maybe Mamoswine. It can come in on a physical attacker, get the Intimidate, and then, since it still has Swords Dance and Rock Polish, it can pretty much end the game right there. Maybe. Very, very likely so. So this thing is going to be a huge physical threat, and it's going to take physical hits extremely well. It can come in on Lucario, it can come in on Tyranitar, it can come on Terrakion. Not a lot, almost nothing can come in safely on Terrakion. This thing can. This is one of the very few, if the only thing, that can switch into Terrakion and scare it out, kill it, or, just play with it. So this is going to make Terrakion its chew toy. I think, in terms of whether it's better or worse from its previous incarnation, I think it's much better. Before it had that speed tier where it could outspeed a lot of things and run a Choice Scarf efficiently. It also had a really high special attack stat, but I don't think either of those two matter when you add in 145 attack and Intimidate. It's essentially more bulky than Gliscor with Intimidate, so Landorus-T is going to be huge. In terms of whether it could go Uber, I could see that happening, but you'd have to look at everything overall. I think Thundurus-T still has a better chance of going Uber than Landorus-T, although Landorus-T, like I said, is pretty much a Gliscor and Terrakion fused together, which is actually really, really, really scary if you think about it. So I could see Landorus. I wouldn't be surprised if it went Uber. I'm not gonna say for sure it is going Uber, but I mean there's still a lot of things that can check it. Though at the same time, 91 speed with Rock Polish, you could easily scare something out with Landorus-T, set up a Rock Polish, and pretty much sweep everything. It still lacks priority, but like I said, because of its bulk, it's not going to really worry about getting hit by a Mach Punch or a Quick Attack. Bullet Punch is going to be no less scary for it. So it's really got everything it needs. And like I said, again, it has 105 special attack to abuse Hidden Power Ice or Hidden Power Fire for things. I don't think it's going to need Hidden Power Fire. Steel types are going to fall to it all the time. Hidden Power Ice, though, for Gliscor and other Landorus-T is going to be huge. So this thing is going to be a humongous threat, whether it's Uber or OU. And like I said, it's different from the other two, so that's amazing. And the next two form changes that I'd like to talk about are Black and White Kyurem, who are kind of the title characters, or the title Pokemon of these two games. And what I'd first like to bring up about these two is that their base form is Kyurem, meaning they are Kyurem, and they're just with assets of Reshiram and Zekrom fused into them. So essentially it's just a better version of Kyurem. And with that, what I'd like to first talk about is their typing is the same as Kyurem, which means they're still super weak to everything. Kyurem's stats were godly. They were the best stats of really any non-Uber Pokemon, but what prevented it from even being OU was its typing. Only its typing. Offensively, Ice and Dragon is pretty redundant. Defensively, Ice is super weak to so many common types in OU that there was no reason for it to there's no way really for it to effectively survive. Even if you make up for its kind of bad speed with a Choice Scarf, Scizor and Conkeldurr just destroyed it. Scizor, Conkeldurr, Terrakion, Tyranitar, so many things were able to just destroy it that it wasn't even OU. This time, however, it still, like I said, keeps the type, which means it's still super weak to a lot of things, but it gained a couple things that I think, it gained some very minor things that I think are going to kind of change that. Let's start with White Kyurem. In terms of stats, its HP and defense are exactly the same as Kyurem, which was really, really good before. Like I said, Kyurem had amazing defenses, but because of its typing, it really didn't matter. Its special defense was boosted by 10, which means it's now 125 HP, 90 defense, and 100 special defense, which means it's really, really, really bulky. For an OU or borderline Pokemon, it's extremely bulky. It lost 10 attack, so it went from 130 to 120. 120 is still very powerful, and looking at its move pool and its other stats, you're not going to care that it's 10 points less in attack. And its speed is equal now. It's no faster or slower than before. Again, Choice Scarf can kind of make up for that speed. Even if you don't use a Choice Scarf, its bulk and its just supreme presence really will take care of that. Because of the fact that it now has 170 special attack. And yes, you did hear me correctly. It is now the second most powerful Pokemon in special attack in the entire game, over Deoxys attack form. And what this has over Deoxys attack form is everything else. I mean, it has much lower speed, but its bulk is just extremely good. Its coverage and its typing just grant it extremely powerful moves. It can run Blizzard in Hail. It can run Ice Beam without Hail. It can run Draco Meteor and Dragon Pulse, both of which would kill a lot of things. And it can run a Fire-type move, Fire Blast over Heat, etc. And it gets Turbo Blaze, which means not even Heatran can stop it. This thing has perfect coverage in just 2 moves, Dragon and Fire-type moves, and nothing can take a hit from those 2 moves, from either of those 2 moves. Meaning, again, Heatran won't even wall this, and this can just run a spec set and kill everything. For that reason, despite the fact that it's essentially still Kyurem, and it still has the same typing, this thing is by no means going to stay in OU at all. It's not going to stay in Borderline, it's not going to stay in OU. This thing is going Uber, there's no doubt about it. Just that special attack alone just boosts it extremely. That special attack with the coverage that I mentioned, there's no reason for this not to go Uber. If it doesn't, then this will single-handedly destroy everything in OU, and there's nothing that can stop it, despite its bad typing. I mean, you could even run a spec set with minor special attack investment and some bulk investment to kind of take maybe bullet punches from Scizor, and you'd be good to go still. You still run rampant on everything in the entire tier. So this thing is pretty much Reshiram with Kyurem's typing, with better stats than Reshiram. So yeah, this thing is no way going to stay below Uber. Next thing we have Black Kyurem, who is essentially the same exact thing, but the physical version. So it has better defense, lower special defense, better defense, lower special attack, and extremely better attack, which means, again, this thing is going to be smashing things with Outrage and Fusion Bolt, and, you know, I don't know, Earthquake, I don't know, whatever else it has. Who cares what else it has? It's just going to destroy everything. So Black and White Kyurem, pretty much the same thing. I don't feel like there's too much to say about them except for that huge offensive stat improvement. But like I said, they're pretty much Reshiram and Zekrom with Kyurem's typing. So, and again, with that huge improvement in the offensive stats. So these things are by no means going to stay in OU or Borderline. These things will go Uber, and even in Uber they're going to be huge threats. And I cannot emphasize how much that offensive stat makes a difference. So be on the lookout for these things, but not in Overused, because yeah, it's just not happening. They do each get a kind of novelty, quote-unquote, move that I like to call. White Kyurem gets Ice Burn, Black Kyurem gets Freeze Shock, I believe. And neither of these is really worth note. I mean, I think they both take 2 turns. They're both Ice-type moves, and they're, I think, 140 base power. So they're essentially Ice-type variants of Sky Attack, physical and special, respectively. So you're not going to really want to run those over. I mean, maybe Black Kyurem can run them. I don't know if Black Kyurem gets Ice Shard. I'm honestly not too sure. But I don't think you're really going to want to run these. Because again, Ice-type coverage with Dragon-type coverage is redundant. So if you're running Black Kyurem, you don't need that Ice-type stab. You could just run, or you could even run like Ice Beam or Blizzard, because its special attack is not bad at all. So you could just run Outrage and Fusion Bolt, and you'd pretty much have a lot covered. So yeah, again, these 2 things are amazing. And I can't wait to use them out, or to try them out at least. They look really cool. They're kind of, I love the whole fusion aspect of them, but otherwise, like I said, there's not too much to say about them, other than what I've said. And last and probably least, we have Keldeo's new form, which was really, I felt spur of the moment kind of deal. Found out about it kind of last minute, right before they released the games, and it's really not significant at all, because what it is once Keldeo gets Secret Sword, I believe it changes into this form. This isn't even new, or this isn't even big, because we didn't even have Keldeo last gen, so we have nothing to compare it to. Or, I mean, last metagame. So we have nothing to compare it to, which means we're getting Keldeo in this generation, and we're getting its new form, which, again, you know, kind of takes away from the whole novelty of it. And its new form is, it's just an aesthetic change. It's just, it looks different. So there's really nothing to say about this. Keldeo overall has really good stats, but I'm not talking about Keldeo. I'm talking about its new form, and its new form isn't any different. So it's really not worth a note here, but I thought I would just say it just because it is a new form. I was really hoping that Virizion, Terrakion, and Cobalion would get a new form, because I saw that the 3 genies got a new form, so I was thinking it would be extremely awesome if the other trio got a new form, but they didn't, obviously. That's okay, though, because what I've talked about in this video, I feel will impact the metagame hugely. Even just the 3 genies alone will have a humongous impact on everything in OU. And, like I said, 1 or 2 of them might go Uber, so be on the lookout for that. Black and White Kyurem are just humongously powerful, so be careful if you ever run into those. Just turn the other way and don't look back. Although you'll probably be zapped to tiny pieces by the time you get, by the time you even attempt to run away. But anyways, thank you for listening to me yammer for, I don't know, 20 or so minutes. I kind of enjoyed doing this. Sorry it's kind of a long video. I'll probably put tabs or links right now or at the beginning of the video to when I talk about each form, just in case you only want to listen to one discussion. I know I'm probably not the most eloquent speaker or the most fun to listen to, but I just thought, since, you know, this is new and these are kind of really huge speculatory topics, that it'd be kind of nice for you guys to maybe hear someone's thoughts on them. And maybe you agree with what I've said, maybe you disagree with what I've said. Either way, let me know what you think. And thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll start uploading battles soon. If I don't, I'll definitely do, because I think these are fun videos to do, where I just kind of talk about the new aspects of the game. So if you want to see more of these, let me know. I don't even know if I have any more followers. I pretty much have been absent for several months, but hopefully I can gain some back. And as always, please check out my blog. I'll put a link right here. I'll put a link in the description. I've updated that too. I've been absent from that one a lot as well, but you know, I'm going to start uploading a lot more frequently now that Black and White 2 are coming out. I've posted a couple new topics from in the past few days, and I've kind of organized it a little better too. So yeah, if you'd like to check that out, please do. And everyone, hopefully have a nice day.